Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Amanda. I can't wait to hear more about you. Please go ahead and tell us about yourself and how you began instrument making.
Okay, well, a long time ago, I won't say how long, but a long time ago, I was a gymnast and I absolutely loved gymnastics. Well, I was flipping around the house and outside in the grass and on the trees, if you can imagine, because one of my branches was just really low and straight. So I was able to use that like as a uneven bar. And so I probably was begging my parents to be put in gymnastics. I'm not 100% sure, but eventually I got in. And I progressed pretty quickly. And when you get to a certain level, you get to choose your own music and your own choreography for your routines. I think that may have been level 6 or level 7. I can't remember. And so traditionally, when you choose music for USA gymnastics, it's more classical. So that was my introduction into classical music. So when I was choosing my floor routine music, it was always classical, and I just thought it was really beautiful. And I moved a bit more flowy, so it just worked for me. After I got out of gymnastics, I started going to more ballets and things like that. And I was realizing that I really loved something that was inside of this classical music, but I couldn't pinpoint it because I just didn't know a lot about instruments and I didn't know a lot about music. I just knew what I liked and I knew what I didn't like. And so I just dug a little bit deeper in it and I realized that there were string instruments that I really liked. And I was like, oh, okay, these are string instruments. These are violins, these are cellos, these are basses. So I was like, okay, cool, I'm learning something. So once I got out of gymnastics, I was just thinking, I would like to play what I heard, learn how to play an instrument. And so when I was doing my research, it seems like piano and violin are one of the two of the instruments that people normally start with. So I thought, cool, okay, so I can start with the violin. So I got a violin and I started to go to practice. And then life happened, right? You go to college, you have the kids, you have all the things, and then trying to navigate my best life and everybody else's best life. It was tiring. I was super drained. And so during my third pregnancy, I was playing a little bit then, and my daughter with piano, but then I just couldn't. I couldn't. I tried my best, and I couldn't do all the things. So I was like, okay, we're going to take a step back from it for a little while, raise some kids, and do all the other things. Well, I started to miss it. Like I really started to miss it, and I kept going to the ballets and here at National Ballet, you can see in watching the musicians not necessarily the show, especially when the job was 10 years, job position limited. So after that job was eliminated, I wasn't really sure of what I wanted to do after that. And I was really contemplating it and really thinking about it and binge watching a lot of Netflix, trying to figure out my life. And I wasn't really sure what to do next. Thankfully, I worked for such a long time. I had a severance package. So I had space to be able to think about it without having to worry about rushing to get another source of income. So I was watching hours and hours of Netflix, no joke, just hours and hours because you're kind of in that in between space. And when I don't have like a direct focus, I'm like, what am I supposed to be doing with my life? Because I think that oftentimes, especially we as women, and if we're mothers, we think that we're mothers and we're all about the kids. But no, I have to live my best life for other people to live their best life too, especially the kids that I'm raising. And even though I loved being available 100% for my kids, which is what I always wanted to, I also wanted to continue to develop and expand as an individual. And so I always say, long story short, it's always a long story. But and so I came across a documentary on Netflix, and it's like, I am not your guru. Well, I went through yoga teacher training. So like guru is a part of my vocabulary. I was like, what's this about? He looks weird. Let me see what he's talking about. And not a yoga person. He practices yoga and meditation, but that's really not his thing. He really is into more of the life coaching, helping people determine what their path is in the present and finding their best life. So he was going through all these things with his audience of like 5,000 people. And he asked them a question. And his question was, what does an extraordinary life look like for you? And so he said, before you can even think about it, before, and for me, what I heard him say is that before the critic can come in, right? Because an extraordinary life for me could look like picking flowers all day, every day. An extraordinary life for a person could be petting puppies. I know some people in my circle who left a corporate job to actually be like professional dog walkers, and they're with animals all day, every day, and it really makes deposits into their soul. And so sometimes are you there?
I am. No worries.
I'm sorry. Let me try to
No,
disconnect.
there's always something. And like I live in rural South Carolina. So it's funny. We had, we were talking before this and having virtual kindergarten. And they're like, do you have a reliable internet connection? I'm like, well, define reliable. I have many
I'm sorry.
backups.
Right. It's just all the things.
Yes.
And so basically he was talking about what does an extraordinary life look like for you? And I was like, I pressed pause because I was thinking, what does an extraordinary life look like for me? Like, I've never heard that question in that way. And so I have a whiteboard in my space. So I wrote all the things that would for me equal an extraordinary life. And they were all over the place, right? They're like a box of Skittles and all kinds. There were the rainbow of things. And I just looked at it and I started to really judge it harshly. Like, I love photography, but I'm not a photographer, but I feel like I have an eye for beautiful things and I like to capture it. However, I was like, I've never shot a professional photo in my life. So how is that even going to work? And then, the violin, I was like, I love playing the violin and I just want to start playing it again. And before then, I didn't have the space in my schedule to prioritize it, but now I had a lot of space. So I was like, that could work. And then, I saw dance, and I dance here in Nashville, African dance, Latin dance, contemporary dance, ballet dance. And I was like, yeah, I want to just dance, but I'm not a professional dancer. So how is that going to put food on the table? So, then there's the critic, right? And so I was like, wait a minute, that's not what he said, dude. He said, he asked the question, follow directions, Amanda. And then just write whatever it is. So I had all these seemingly random things on my board. And I was just looking at them, and for a little bit, I got not depressed, but I was just thinking, I don't see employment really in here. And that's what you're looking for next, because that's what you're used to, is you're used to employment. And I thought, I just don't see employment in here. I don't know what's going to happen. So I just slept on it. Right. So I slept on it. It stayed on my board for a little while. I'm not sure how long. And then I began just to continue to look at it and look at it and look at it. And the common denominator of all those things was that it brought me joy, all of those things. That was the common denominator. So I was like, okay, I understand that. So I am choosing an extraordinary life. For me is the joyful life. And so I am making the decision right now, like with the sweat beads running off my head at that time, to choose joy. So it wasn't one specific thing. It wasn't, I'm going to go out and do this and I'm going to go out and do this. I just want to choose joy and have that positive vibration, which our vibrations attract, right? And so if I'm out there feeling joyful, I'm going to attract more things to feel joyful about. So I was like, yes, I've got it. I've got it. So that's when I said, okay, what are all the dance classes that I want to take? I'm just going to take them. Every quarter, or when my kids have a break, I'm going to travel. I'm going to travel on the weekends. I'm going to find a place where I can start back taking violin lessons, and I'm going to take violin lessons. And so that particular one, so it's so interesting because when I was going to these dance classes, there was a dance class that was canceled, and they didn't even put out a notification. So the dance class was canceled, and I walked by this rooms and there was like a strings ensemble in there. And I was thinking, what are you guys doing? And it was a mixed audience. And so I was like, there was old, there was young, there was people of color. And I was like, what's going on in here? And so I got that woman's card and eventually reached out to that group and started practicing with them. It happened so quick. It was like, bam, 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 bam. We're about to start a new semester. We're ready. And so I thought, super cool. So as I got into the group, practice every Saturday at community centers here in Nashville, and I got into the group. And so I had a violin. It was a student violin from a long time ago. And so your student violins are more like factory violins. There's not much, I don't want to say that much thought put into it, but the materials may be like a lower tier. There's machines that pretty much cuts the whole thing. It doesn't have like the human connection in it. And so it gets the job done when you're not sure what you want to do, or you have a 5-year-old who wants to play the violin today and then wants to be a butterfly tomorrow, things like that, right? And so I got into the group and I was talking to some of the group members, and I learned that there was a person who was a part of the group as an extension who had made some instruments for other people in the group. And I was like, what? Like, people are making these? Like, now I know, but before I feel like I would think that someone would assemble it, but not actually make it from start to finish. And I was talking to one individual who had a viola made for her, and she said, yeah, you should talk to him. He's here once a month and you can see if he can make an instrument for you too, because I was unhappy with the sound of my instrument. So I was super scared to do that. I didn't have a job. So I was like, how much is this going to cost? And I'm not sure if it's an investment that I can make right now, but I was really excited about it. And so I had like 2 or 3 weeks maybe to think about it. So of course, all the anxiety wells up and me thinking about what I'm going to say to him and whether or not it's going to be received, or will I just be one of those people who's irritating and go away? And so he came into one of the practices and it was like, there he is. And I was just thinking, oh, I gotta ask him now. Like, I was scared and excited at the same time because I had never heard of instrument making. The thought of having my own instrument being made for me I was like, oh, that would be so incredible. And then more inspiring to play as well. So I allowed him to come in and to set up his table with all of his tools, because he was going to look at some of the instruments that were there that the other people were playing and make sure that the strings were okay and other things. And so after he looked like he was settled in, I walked over to him and I introduced myself, and I told him I was talking to another woman whose viola you'd made. And I asked if it would be reasonable for me to have a violin made, what that would look like and what that would cost. So we started talking about that pretty organically, and it was a wonderful conversation. And the answers were kind of like open-ended answers. So the answers left space for me to ask more questions versus, how when you feel like you've asked the last question and you get that last question answer, I didn't feel that at all. And so I just kept asking questions and kept asking questions. And I asked, and this one just kind of came out, how sometimes we don't think and we just talk. I was like, is there any part that I could play in making this violin? Because the more he explained, it seems like there was something that I can do. And then I could have bragging rights, like, look, this is violin I had, and I did this part. And so he said, yeah, maybe there is, something that you can do along the way. And I was like, that would be really cool. And I asked about the wood, like, I love willow trees. And so can you have any type of wood in there somewhere? And he was like, yeah, that's possible. Everything's possible. Those answers that you like to hear when you're new and you really don't know what you're talking about, but absolutely, it can be done. And so after we started talking, he said, it would be a little bit better if you kind of just got an overview on what it looks like to make a violin. And I was like, The first thing I was thinking in my mind is, that sounds like a commitment. I don't know if I can make any commitments like that. But then I thought, you're not doing much else. You've got time in your day because you have no job. So why not? So I just said, yeah, I could probably dedicate, 1 day a week, because I was doing all the other things, right? I was traveling, I was taking my dance, and I was going to the school lunches and the field trips, all those things that I had missed when I was working full time. And so I said, yeah, I can commit 1 day, and Sunday is usually my down day. And so maybe I can commit to Sunday. And so when I left, I wasn't 100% sure if it was really going to happen, because you know how sometimes you have conversations in the moment. You feel good in the moment. A lot of good things are said in the moment, but nothing really happened. But I was literally there within like 2 weeks at the violin shop. And we really didn't know what was going to transpire. We were kind of just going with the flow, and starting from the beginning and learning about the woods and learning about botany and learning about machines and learning about hand tools. And so, as you can imagine, when I left, I had a headache for at least 5 months when I left there, because it was just so much information, because I didn't realize that violin making is not only woodworking, it's so much more other things. And so when you have a teacher who's been making for 30 plus years and has all this experience, it all tends to come out. And so you're like, wait a minute. It's like you have to write everything down, and then you have to get home and you have to Google it to try to make all the puzzle pieces make sense to you. But when we got started, am I on the right track with your question, or am I just like
No, you're
left?
like, and that's why I laugh, because I send these questions and I don't even get to half of them sometimes, but you tend to answer them in your story anyway. So
Yes.
no, because that's definitely, like, what opportunities have you found most beneficial, and, telling me a little bit more about your experiences with your mentor. And it's just really interesting to hear your background and the different ways that you come to this, and what's important to you, and what caught your eye, and like, what is the basis of that connection that has brought you to this craft. So please continue.
Yeah, it's like a whole bunch of internal yeses, right? Because sometimes we don't know really what we want. Sometimes it's not very specific, right? Because sometimes when you wake up in the morning, you're like, I'm having pizza today, I am having it, and I know where I'm having it from and when. And then sometimes you're just like, I'm hungry, but I don't know what I want. But I want something that's satisfying. I want something that's exciting. I want something that's fulfilling. I want, all these things. And so that's kind of, because I love food, which is why I just related the two.
Yes.
That's kind of how I was. I didn't know specifically what I wanted to do, but I knew how I wanted to feel. And so when it was something new, when it came to this, I was like, this is new and this is exciting. And I feel like I'm learning and I feel like I'm expanding. And the opportunity presented itself with ease. And then working it out, there was a lot of ease. So then it's like, we're following the ease. We don't know where it's going to lead, but it feels good right now. And that's good for me right now. And so being in the violin shop, and at first, I didn't really share it with anybody. It wasn't like a secret. However, I didn't know if it was something that I would continue on either. I just knew that I enjoyed it at the moment. The environment was a safe learning environment. So we'll see how it goes until the next thing comes along. And so it wasn't until it was so interesting, because we were in the shop and we were hacking away on wood, and I was really scared of these machines. I just don't like loud noises, period. And then when things are spinning at your face or chopping real fast, and I thought, I don't know if I like this part. And, he explained to me, my teacher's name is Ray, and he explained that, years and years and years, centuries ago, let's say a century ago, these machines weren't available. So it took a very long time to produce these instruments. And so he said, yeah, can you produce these instruments without the machines? Yes. Does it take a bit longer? Is it a little bit worse on your hands and on your body? Absolutely. So, there's some things that we can do on the machine that will take off like 2 weeks worth of work. And I was like, Now I get it going through the process because it can be a lot of slow working. And so he was like, it's really beneficial for you to be able to learn and be comfortable with these machines, and I was like, I've never even, I've pushed many buttons before, but on the microwave usually, not with these, not with these big machines. And so, and then the hand tools and the knives and the materials, it was a lot. It was a lot, and it was exciting at the same time, like going back for more. And so it was for me, I was pursuing my joy, right? So it was very personal. It wasn't until about 4 months in that I realized how much bigger it was for me to actually be doing this. And so there was an opportunity for someone to come and interview us for a magazine, a newspaper here called the Tennessee Tribune. And so, of course, my anxiety flared up when I was told that she wanted to speak to me. I'm like, why does she want to speak to me? I've been here 4 months. Like, what do I know? Like, I don't want to talk to her. I will sit here and listen into the conversation, and it'll be a group conversation. And what little morsel of knowledge that I have about this industry, I can chime in. But other than that, like, I'm not getting it. Why is this like, I was all the anxiety. And so I did a little research on the publication, and also we just happened to have my teacher brought it up, and he was just talking about, I don't know any other Black makers. There's a lot of female makers, but I don't know nor have I heard of any other female Black makers. And I thought, I'm going to ask the all powerful Google, because Google knows all. And if there is another one on record, I'm going to find it and I'm going to prove you wrong. So I was like, And so I left there that day and I Googled it and I found nothing. And I was going on all these little forums to see if there was just any makers from African descent, and I found nothing on record for a couple of years. And so then it made sense. The Tennessee Tribune is wanting to interview us for what's going on because it's history. It's history to have an individual looking like me doing this thing that it's been historically one way, and that's male and white. And so I thought, oh, okay. So why has it been historically this way? There could be many reasons, but the one that I landed on is lack of representation. In today's time, back 100, 200 years, the reason was different. Now here, maybe it's just something that no one else who looks like me is seen doing. So it's just something that we don't do. And so I thought, wouldn't it be magnificent to do this thing and not only in the process be creating violins, but also be creating tables for other people who look like me to sit at. So I was like, fire, kerosene, fire, all the things. And so I would say that because there's such an opportunity for a greater impact. I mean, I'm so thankful that it's so magical, that I love it so much, that I'm having a good time learning and growing and expanding, but also I can be a part of creating impact and change. To me, it's like the winning combination. And it gives me so much joy that I can give out to others. And it allows me to feel the way that I wanted to feel, excited to approach the day, eager to tell people my story and let them know that I'm out here doing this thing. And if you want to, you can do it too, or anything else that has excluded you that you can do, even if there's someone who doesn't look like you who is doing it. So there.
No, thank you for sharing your story, because you are just, it's a perfect example of, like you said, following that joy. I have personally been in that position. I think a lot of creative artists, makers, what have you, have been in that position where you feel that burning inside of you. That's like, I've got to make something, I've got to do something, but I don't know what it is. I don't know what I want to say. And it takes a lot of work and a lot of soul searching. And you are brilliant enough to immediately, kind of identify what is that feeling. And, really that's why we do it. And that's what, we as creative people seek out, I think, ultimately, more than anything. And it's just such a great reminder that no matter where you are in your practice or your career, because it's really easy to get off your path as well, is to find that, follow that, and that kind of brings you back to center. And then how remarkable to see that, your story was playing a much bigger part, than you first realized, and how, how important that representation is. And wow, how powerful. And to do that so quickly in your career as well. So how long ago was that? How long have you been, doing, I guess, instrument, design, building, repair?
2018, so not very long.
Wow.
I know, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not Oprah Winfrey, okay, but I will just say my story reminded me of something that she said. I can't remember where she was when she said it. But I think it was her master class. I don't know if you've ever watched Oprah Winfrey's master class, where she's speaking and then she has other people in entertainment and sometimes not, maybe in education too, like Maya Angelou, Sidney Poitier, speaking about their life and how it evolved into what it was. And so when all these things started happening, I was taking score, right? I was like, why? I've only been doing this for 17 seconds, not literally, but for me, it's like, I'm new. So, what do I have to say that's of value? And why do you want to speak to me? And then just thinking I'm not enough. Like, I don't know enough. Haven't been in it enough. I don't know anybody in the industry. I can't name drop. Like, I'm one of those people who is in the background, and all of these other people have gone to these prestigious schools or studied with these masters. And, I'm just a girl from Nashville making violins at a home shop. And so I kind of was like, is that enough for the people? Will it be well received? And this image of Oprah came into my mind. It just kept coming in. And because she went to TSU here in Nashville, Tennessee. And I think she was majoring in communications. I'm not sure, but she was in class and she was called out of class for an interview to host some type of either TV or radio or something related to what she wanted to do for her career. So she left class and she took the call, and she came back in class, and her teacher was saying, what was that about? And she said, it was such and such from, I'll just say WKRN, but whatever. And they wanted to interview me, but I'm here in class, so I can't go to the interview. And I believe he said, that's what you're in school for, fool. I don't know if he called her fool or not, but that's what you're here for, is to do that. And you don't have to, I just don't believe that we're all going to arrive, right? As long as we keep living and we're going to keep growing and keep expanding. And it's okay to do the best that you can and receive recognition from where you are and continue to move forward. You don't have to have it all figured out. We pretend like we have it all. I think it feels better for me to just say, I don't have it all figured out, instead of trying to pretend, just to be myself. Look, this is where I am. This is what I've got. If it's not for you, then it's not for you. It doesn't mean that it's invalid. It doesn't mean that I'm not enough. It just means that you need to look somewhere else but I'm okay where I am right here, right now. And so when these opportunities started to come, I just started saying, yes, I do deserve that. I can take this moment to be able to speak about what's really important, because it's really not about me. I just happen to be the one in the space and the one being a mouthpiece to kind of shed light onto the lack of diversity in this industry. So it's not about me. It's about creating space for other people too. And I was like, yeah, I can do that. I can talk about it. I can share my story. I can project the passion that I have for the inclusivity and play an important role in making the change in the industry. And it's okay if I am 3 years in versus 35 years in. It's okay. I'm not going to keep score. I still have value in the experience that I have now. And that's what I'm going to offer with audacity. And so that's what I've been doing. That's what I've been doing lately. And I'm glad that I kind of found that. I have to go back to it, right? I haven't fully embraced that because I still feel certain ways, certain times, but I do try to remind myself more often than not that I am okay where I am, and I still can create and help other people with where I am and create impact. And that's my overall goal, is to create that impact. So yay,
Wow.
me and Oprah, not really, but
Wow. No, it's funny. Like, and you bring up Oprah because I'll sit down and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna be the Oprah of woodworking today. She's definitely, which I could never be Oprah, but that's just wow. Like, and I'm even looking at like how I typically like interview people, and I normally have like so many questions and want to know all these things, and I find myself just sitting here like listening to you, and it's just very remarkable to see this energy and what you're kind of conducting here, pun intended. Like it's just beautiful, and to hear your story, and I hope the threads that you have connected your life. I've personally experienced it. To me, there's nothing more beautiful than being able to like see that and identify that and like really embrace it and enjoy it, good and bad. And it sounds like you've absolutely done that, on so many levels. And congratulations to you for that, because that is how many just people in general go through life and don't realize that. But I think as creative people, it's on another level. You're trying to figure out so much more than like your personal identity. You're figuring out, how you relate to things that may exist in the world or may not, your imagination, only things that you can dream of. So thank you for that representation, and for taking on that role. It's a responsibility. It's a big responsibility, and it's not something that falls on every maker. And I think you're doing a fabulous job of it, and I'm honored to play this very small part in helping to share your story and amplify what you do, because it is so important. And the work you're doing is invaluable. So that kind of segues into another good question. What advice do you have for others looking to get into a creative industry or instrument making, even specifically?
Yeah, I've had this conversation with another woman about instrument making and how do you get into it? Because what I've learned is that, because as an adult, when I was going through my yoga teacher training, one of the teachers was saying that it's really hard to have your passion support your life. Because sometimes our passions just don't financially do that for us, and then we burden our passion, and then it no longer becomes our passion, and all these things kind of unfold. And I was really thankful that she said that. I think I've heard a version of that, but it resonated a bit more strongly at that time, because your passions really fill up your soul, and it gets you out of bed each morning, and it allows you to be more excited about life. However, we still are individual human beings who need certain things to be able to live comfortably, like food and clothing and shelter. And so instead of resisting that and trying to make our passion, be all the things, I'm kind of glad that I start thinking about, I may have to work a regular job. So, I was driving for Uber Eats, and I was doing all the things that I was able to do so that I can do the things that I love to do. And then eventually, transition to doing what I love and not having to do those other things. So I would say embrace that, because that can be a hard one why can't it just, we put so much on our passion, especially in its infancy, because even though our passion may have been there for all of our lives and we may be in our 40s, actually pursuing it and trying to expand it in 2 months, it's like giving a 2-month-old baby a steak. It's just not gonna, they just can't, they
Love that metaphor.
They don't have what they need to get it in. And so we can't put too much pressure on our passion. We may have to do these double things to be able to support our passion. So that's the first thing I recommend. just get started. I mean, I feel like that's the hardest part. You almost like don't know which door to choose. And so with violin making specifically, I think a great way to start is bow rehair. And the reason why is because it requires minimum amount of supplies, minimum amount of tools, all hand tools, probably about 12, minimum amount of material. And I think it's a good introduction into carving wood in small pieces. It's a good introduction to using knives, learning how to sharpen your knives and maintain. And it's an easy way to get started. Going into violin making and violin making schools is expensive. FAFSA doesn't recognize it. So it's like, I know, I was like, I wish FAFSA would
Once
recognize
again.
it costs a lot. It can cost a lot of money and then a lot of time too. So even if, let's say you had, I can't remember, I think one school that a person that I know is trying to go to may be like 15 grand a year, which may not be a lot of money, but then you also have to go from 8 to 4. So if you have to go to 8 to 4, how do you work? How do you maintain your life, especially if you got other things going on? If you're a grown working adult with grown working adult responsibilities, it's like, how do you do that? So what I love are these small workshops that happened all around the country, even at Woodcraft Supply. Are you familiar with Woodcraft Supply?
Yes,
I
we
feel
used
like
to have one.
everyone.
I want them back so bad.
Woodcraft Supply is a great place to start with woodworking because you go in, you get to make boxes, you get to make pins, you get to learn how to sharpen tools, you get to learn basics of some machines like bandsaws. I was talking to another person and he's in transition to go to violin making school, but in between time he's trying to work the things out. And I was like, use this time to do to build small skills, because I've heard of another person's story who went to a violin making school and she was just saying, I had to learn how to use machines. There were so many learning curves because there's so much you have to know and learn to be successful at doing it. And so she thought that she wasn't going to make it and she wanted to quit because, you have to be a botanist, you have to be a machinist, you have to be all these things and have these skills, these carving skills, and they're not automatic for a lot of us. And so the small steps count. A lot of us think I'm just going to make this huge leap and I'm going to do all these things. And if that's in your space and you can do that, wonderful. It's not for a lot of us. And we have to take little tiny tippy toe like steps before we can start to crawl, before we can start to walk, and before can start to run. And all of that's okay. So I would say get started if you really want to do it, or even if you're just curious, take some of these small woodworking classes to kind of build up your skills. And I put things out there in the universe. I do one of those things. And I think about it and I think about it and I meditate on it. And I start looking for those opportunities that enter into my space. I know that not a lot of people right now are accepting apprentices. It used to be, that's the norm, really. School is not the norm, and apprenticeship is the norm. And a lot of that's not happening for various reasons, which is why these schools exist. But oftentimes people will welcome you into their shops to observe, if you wanted to do that, to really determine that that's something that you want to pursue, so you can see the day to day. I recommend that as well, talking to people, reaching out to people, and them know that you exist and you're here and you're interested. And if there's any opportunities that you have that could be mutually beneficial, that you're open to having a conversation about that. That was kind of one of the hardest things for me, because rejection, I don't like that. And so, some people tell you no, they're operating a business. They may not can prioritize time to allow you to come into the space and learn a little bit. But I think our yeses and our nos lead us to the path that we're supposed to be on. So I accept both. It's kind of like that ping pong where it's like, yes and no, yes and no, yes and no, and it leads you to exactly where you need to be. So I became very grateful for the no's, because I definitely don't want to waste any time in being somewhere where I don't need to be, or it's taking me further away from where I need to go. So putting yourself out there. And a lot of times we say that, but really doing so. And it's a lot easier with social media, and a lot more comforting because you kind of have that veil of being behind the computer screen. So you can use your hashtags to do your work for you, use your hashtags to let people know that you're a student or you're interesting or you're a future woodworker, and then follow other people on social who can offer you some suggestions and some ideas. I mean, I just learned so much. I didn't even know so many women were woodworkers, not like violin makers, but other types like carpentry and stuff. I am blown away of all the women that I have seen on Instagram. I just can't believe that I didn't know about it any sooner, to see what these women are creating, because you don't see a lot of that. It's always the men on these home reconstruction things. You don't see a lot of women doing things. And I'm like, right. There's a slew of women out here making magic, and I just absolutely love it. And it's encouraging to me. It's motivating to me. That representation of seeing women out there has helped me along the way too. Just going back to how the representation, it's so important, and it does matter. It lets us know that we can do it too. So to wrap all that, it's just the tiny steps. Take the small steps. They don't have to be huge. They don't have to make a lot of noise. Book yourself a class at Woodcraft Supply and go learn how to turn a pin. And you're well on your way to becoming a woodworker if that's your true desire.
Great advice. Great advice. And it makes it more accessible. If, like you said, if you can take big bites, go for it. But like you said, getting started is the hardest part, and getting over that fear of like, what if I fail, just try, and woodworking is one of those wonderful things that, I might make something, it might be hideous, but I've made something, and that still provides me satisfaction. So
right.
That's one of the beautiful things about the craft. So well, Amanda, thank you so much for taking the time to share your insight with us. I feel like I could sit here and talk with you all day. Honestly.
We could.
It would be so fun. How can folks get in touch with you and see more of your work?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram and Facebook too. Somebody told me that Facebook was for old people. I got a little offended. I was like, when did that happen? So same on Instagram, it's at Lovingly DeMeo Violins, Lovingly DEMEO Violins, and Lovingly Amanda. So that's my personal Instagram page. And so it has all the things, my yoga, my food stuff. So you can find Lovingly DeMeo from Lovingly Amanda. And I try to post regularly, keep people updated. I'm leaving for Italy on Monday.
Yes, we didn't even get to talk about that. That's so exciting. Do you have a minute to share what you're doing?
I do. What time is it? Let me check time. Yes. Long story short, I always talk. So while I was doing the whole woodworking thing, I am super grateful, let me just preface, and super thankful that I have a teacher who is willing to work with me and help develop me and see what I want for myself to come to life. I really am. But I was like, where are the women? Like, I really want to work with women. I've always wanted to work with women. Doesn't mean I don't want to work with men, but I love the idea of women developing women. I love it and I need it. And so I was just thinking in my brain, I was like, where are the women makers? Why aren't they standing up, owning these violin shops if that's what you want to do? Apprenticing with other women, like where are they? So I was thinking about that for I don't know how long, and searching for women that I can connect with. Because sometimes I connect with pictures, and I was like, yeah, I like her picture. I'm gonna reach out to her and be her friend. And our paths crossed, me and this woman who is in New York. Her name is Jeanine, and she is a fine, not like fine, beautiful, but she's beautiful, but a fine violin restoration person. And we started talking, and she was talking about creating a community of women in Lutherie. And I'm not sure if she had the name at that time, but she was just like, the women, there are women out here, we are out here, but we're separated. And we want to just bring us all together in one hub and offer some type of support for those individuals who's been in there for a long time and have a lot of knowledge to pass down and share to us individuals who haven't been here for so long, and we are seeking guidance and we're seeking support from other women who can relate to us. And so we talked about it, many conversations talked about it, and she was talking about creating this fellowship program, and I was like, yes, you've been reading my mind. Like, we have been having conversations before we even knew each other existed. And she wanted to create this fellowship program that basically linked experienced makers or women in the field with novice individuals in the field who are also women. And I was like, I am in, and I'm super excited about it. And so within a whirlwind, it probably didn't feel like that for her because it's a huge undertaking, but she rolled it out, and she knows all the people, right? She's got all the stars, and she's got all the training, and she's like the Beyonce. So she's got all the accolades. And so she knows all the people, and she finds these set of mentors and these set of mentees, and she puts us together. And as a part of the program, we're together for 3 months as a part of the program, if your finances will allow, also being with your mentor for a week in whatever location that they're in to get that one-on-one in-person training, if that's available to you. And so it's so funny because I told her, because I haven't traveled in a bit internationally because of all the things. And I was like, whoever my person is, I want to travel internationally. So she was like, okay, I'll keep that in mind. And so she just said, I think I have some place for you to go. I have a person. And I was like, really? Where is it? And she said, Italy. And I could not believe it. Like, I was like, what?
That's
really?
amazing.
I know. I just thought, is this really happening? And it happened. It like unfolded and it aligned with ease. And so I'll be able to go there and to learn from about 7 individuals for 2 weeks, and also travel to Cremona and also get a little bit of tourist stuff in at the same time. But it feels like, I'm hoping it's not a once in a lifetime opportunity, but it feels that way. It just feels so magical. And so I'm just hoping to go and learn and grow and bring that back and be able to make deposits also into other individuals who want to do the same thing. I want to open myself up and be available because so many people have opened themselves up to me. It's like I have to pay it for. It's a charge to pay it forward. So I'm excited to go there and learn. I'm excited to bring back what I know, and I'm excited to use that to help other people.
Beautiful. Absolutely. Well, safe travels. That is so exciting. I hope you eat lots of great food. Talking about food. Oh my gosh. I'm so jealous.
I plan on it. I plan on it. My top priority is eating.
There you go.
And tasting wine. So I'm super excited to do all those things.
Oh, well, congratulations. That's so exciting, and enjoy. And I can't wait to see what you bring back to the community here. And thanks for sharing about the Women in Lutheran program and the fellowship. I've been following that. That has just been incredible. I cannot believe you said whirlwind, but I really cannot believe how fast that was put together, and just the talent, the mentors, the mentees. It's just a wonderful thing. So I'm glad you're getting to do this. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, we are both working moms, so we got to split.
We're like watching the clock. On to the next thing.
But thank you so much. And I'm sure we will be talking more in the future, and all the great work that you're doing for women in the craft and beyond.
Yes. I look forward to it. Peace and love to you. Thank you very much.
Yes. Take care.
Okay. Bye.